Okay, welcome. Thank you for taking some time to be part of this webinar of bringing fun back to summer 2021. And we are your hosts, Mike Crain and Amanda Miller-Garber. And I will let Amanda introduce herself first.
Hi, everybody. Mike already told you my name. You can just call me Amanda. I am in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, more specifically Harrisonburg, Virginia. And I am the lead pastor at Rise United Methodist Faith Community. We are an interesting hybrid of young adult and college ministry and a lot of really fun people. So that's relevant for today. I'm not going to bore you with all of my credentials and interesting facts about me, but part of the reason I'm here is because I've spent a huge part of my life journeying with youth, college students, and young adults. So I've learned a thing or two about fun. I am also an Enneagram 7, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but anyone who's a 7 knows how to have fun. So I want to share one of the lamest things I've ever done in ministry that's actually ended up being fun. And there's a long list. There really is a remarkably long list of lame things I've done that have ended up fun. But the first one that came to mind for me was in the early days of Rise, which we are now 10 years old, and we function a lot like a 10-year-old in so many ways. But year one had a lot of college students and right out of college age people who loved eating contests. Like they just lived to eat as much as they could, as fast as they could. And so they tried to talk me into hosting a tater tot eating contest, which I thought sounded really ridiculous and quite honestly like a hazard of sorts. It sounded a bit unsafe. People can choke. But I said, all right, I'll follow your lead. And they had a tater tot eating contest. I believe, if I remember correctly, about 35 people participated. And it ended up being absurdly fun, and it led to a series of eating contests, like donut hole eating contests, burrito eating contests, basically anything that could be eaten, they turned it into a contest. And yeah, it was something. The coolest thing I've done in ministry that really bombs, there's a list, there is a list. I don't like to focus on it as much. But I don't know that this was necessarily cool, but I remember again in the early days of Rise, and this is still kind of true for us, we tried to have potlucks. We really did. I don't know why. That just seemed like something we should do. But here's the thing. We had so many young adults that maybe hadn't learned how to cook yet, or like how to do a potluck. That our first 2 potlucks, I'm not making this up, we had 7 bags of Doritos. That is what we had, and most of them were stale. And I think I partially eaten a box of Oreos. So that didn't go terribly well. It reminded me a little bit of Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving, if any of you all remember that, where Snoopy fixes Thanksgiving. But it was, it's a memory. Definitely a memory. So Mike, how about you?
Yeah, so I am the aforementioned Mike Crain. You can call me Mike. And currently I am full-time with Ministry Architects as a lead consultant and director of project management, but spent a good 15 years in youth ministry and children's ministry both, and still volunteer in those areas here locally in the Palm Springs area of California. And likewise, my educational degrees are not that pertinent as far as background to having fun. But the things that are is I'm also an Enneagram 7. And additionally, I'm a sucker for a dare, which in my lifetime has led to many fun moments as my friends have suggested really, really stupid things. Which one time, I mean, I can't believe I'm admitting this on a podcast or a webinar, unscripted, but led to me running down a like backwoods Texas highway in nothing but my boxer briefs, barefoot on the shoulder of the road, while my friends like drove off so I could get some marathon training in. That was a terrible night, but awesome. The lamest thing that I've ever done in youth ministry that actually ended up fun is we had a group of kids at camp, and I was one of the small group leaders for our kids. And I thought we should have a name for our group. Like that will really help us identify well. Let's take all of the letters from our names and then create our team name out of that. Well, we had like 2 S's, 2 T's, 2 M's, a D, and then 2 E's. We had like no vowels. No word was going to get formed. And I was like, you know what? Let's just make a palindrome. And we created this meaningless word, stemdomets. And I thought, I'm an idiot. Like, this is so lame. The rest of camp, our kids would yell, stemdomets. And like, they rallied around our ridiculous team name. It was so amazing. They took so much pride in like being together. My biggest like, hey, this is going to be awesome. And then it just was a fail, epic fail, was iPod karaoke. The name of it alone shows you how old that is, right? When iPods were a thing and they weren't just on our but this is where someone has an iPod, they put the headphones in, and then they have to they have to sing that song, and then all the kids guess based on that song. But what I did not account for was that when you do that and a kid gets shy and doesn't sing the words, what you have in the room is silence. There's no music playing, there's nothing going on, and no kid wants to like solo in front of their friends. It was the most brutal 20 minutes we ever did. And the point of us even sharing those things, like what's the lamest thing that's cool, is, you know, fun it's not just a formula, right? Like we're gonna give you some ideas today, we're gonna give you some principles, but it's also just in the experience. And some of having a good time with your kids is just, your kids or your youth, is when you catch lightning in a bottle, like embrace it and roll with it. And when something you thought was great and fails, don't take it personal, let it go and embrace like the fun and meaningful thing. But not everything's gonna play out like it does on paper. And we have lived that.
Many times. We could spend the rest of this time talking about how we've lived that, but we won't.
But we won't. That's exactly right. No, we will not. A couple of quick things about the features. You'll probably notice there is a chat and a Q&A. If you just have like a random comment, put it in the chat. Also, the chat is the way that we are going to communicate with you. Our lovely producer, Renee, is putting great fun facts I've already seen in the chat. If there's resources, she's going to drop the links to that in the chat as well. Later, we're going to ask for some ideas from you. Put those in the chat. Questions that you want us to answer, which we will be doing Q&A toward the end. You don't have to necessarily hold your questions till the end. Just drop them in the Q&A, which is a different button. Click on that button, drop them in now, and Renee will keep a running list of that. And that's what we'll use for Q&A. So sort of comments and Q&A are separate. And then we want to tell you just a little bit of what to expect in the next 20 to 30 minutes.
That's right. And you know what, Mike, I'm realizing I probably should have mentioned that I also am a coach and consultant with Ministry Architects. That's part of the reason I'm here as well. I'm not some rando who just showed up to hang out with Mike and talk about fun, although that would be fun.
We do love randos, if you will. As long as they're fun, they could be on this podcast. But yes, Amanda is my colleague as well.
That's right. That's right. I have a full-time gig with Rise, and I have a lot of fun with Ministry Architects. Okay, what to expect? So we want to offer a brief disclaimer here, very brief. But that is, we are very aware that fun is not the only thing in ministry, in children's, youth, young adult, family ministry, all of those categories. And this is not a subtle, shameless plug for attractional ministry. So please hear us when we say we very much understand there's more to the journey that is ministry than just fun. But today, we're going to intentionally focus on fun. And we believe that the real theological foundation for what we're doing here today is God is fun. I firmly believe that. God is fun and funny. And I'm reminded of that pretty much every time I look in the mirror. All you have to do is look at creation. And my final theological argument to support my thesis is the duck-billed platypus. Y'all,
Preach.
you try to tell me God isn't fun and funny when you look at the duck-billed platypus and the giraffe, and I could go on and on. So it is holy, it is sacred, and it is essential to ensure that you're creating spaces for the Holy Spirit to bring the fun. Firmly believe that. All right. Hey, Mike, can you tell us about some practicals, some theory, all that good stuff?
Yes.
A word or two about fish.
Yeah. So let's talk about fish. Of course, that has to do with what we're doing. No, the old saying goes, give a person a fish, feed him for a day, teach a person to fish, feed him for a lifetime. And so often what we're, able to do as people with experience in ministry is say, here are the principles that help you. And often in our ministry architects coaching, we do a lot of that so that people can contextualize it to what they're doing. And there's great value to that, to teaching people to fish, right? And all of you, we want you to be able to eat for a lifetime, right? But also we know like summer is on the doorstep, right? And you may have plans, you may not have plans, but like that you need some actual fish to like, we got to eat today sort of thing. Like we can't go starving another summer. So this is going to be a mix of some practical ideas and some theoretical. Sort of the outline of the day is we're talking just a minute about why fun has been so hard thus far, why we're even having this webinar. We're going to give you some concrete ideas that you could take and do. And then we're going to give you some principles for creating your own ideas with your team. And you might say, I don't have a team. Well, we're going to talk about putting one together. And then also, so that'll be about half hour of discussion, and then we'll save about 15 minutes for Q&A toward the end. So that's the outline of the day. So why are we doing this webinar, and why did you show up? My guess is it's because last summer sucked. It really in some literal definitions of the word, it was just like life sucking. For so many of us of, in ministry trying to plan and then people not showing up to things because, it just, they were zoomed out or whatever, not being able to plan things because of safety protocols. And, many states at this point last year were like fully locked down or were about to get locked back down again. Camps were closed. And all this happened so fast, we didn't have any opportunity to plan. We had never been through it. We didn't know what to do. And so all of us were just sort of languishing to a large degree in isolation, trying to do a little bit what we can, and so much of it was we have so many of these beloved traditions in our children's or youth or family ministries, and kids were looking forward to those, and then they just got like stripped away from them. They got stripped away from volunteers, from us as leaders as well. And so that can't happen again this summer. Like, even if it's not back to the old things we used to do, like we need some things where people can have fun and really engage and just delight in being with one another. As Amanda said, that's not everything that that ministry is about, right? It's about relationships and formation, but we think fun is really important. One thing I didn't tell you as far as what to expect, but I'll tell you now, is also expect Mike to do his best to alienate about half of you every so often with some comment I make about youth sports or a beloved youth ministry tradition, or just the way I talk about things.
Yeah.
And so with that, you've come to moment one of that. Let me give an example of why fun is important. Why fun is important in the ministry we do, I would take the example of actually youth sports. And I remember even as a kid and now as a parent, I hear this, and I even tell my kid this, of like, go have fun. Like, having fun is the most important, right? Like, just go out and have fun. But I remember even as a kid, I was pretty dang competitive, and I thought, well, that's stupid. I want to win. And then what I realized was that's not stupid, but for me, winning is more fun, right? So like, have fun, but also win. Winning isn't everything, but it does contribute. In the same way, fun is not the same as relationships and formation, but it does contribute, and it's much easier for relationships to be built, for kids to be engaged, and formation to happen when fun and delight is happening along the way. So
yes, fun and laughter move us to different parts of our brain too. They make us more creative, more open to connection and relationships. Laughter's a gift. We probably don't have to tell this group that. Just ask Patch Adams, right? Yeah, remember that? Oh my gosh, did I just show my age? I did, didn't I?
29. And they were guessing. That is something you do not need to put in the chat. Amanda's age guesses. Feel free to guess my age, but put it in the chat. I would be amazed. But we digress. Let's give you some concrete ideas for things you could do this summer. Some of these are going to be throwbacks to things you maybe have heard of in youth ministry, but with different spins. Some of them may be not wildly edgy, but some where you might like, oh, we might need a waiver for that thing. Yeah, that's probably. And with that, though, let's start with a little segment I call Things Mike Hates. And so, yes, let's talk about fun by talking about things Mike hates. One thing I hate is the car wash fundraiser, the youth ministry or children's ministry even, car wash fundraiser. I hate it.
It makes you really angry, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why. I think it's old school. I've never experienced it to raise that much money. But yeah, there's something about it where whenever I see one, I'm like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
But here's what I would recommend as a great activity for this summer. Hey, you should do a car wash. The very thing I hate, I think is a great activity for summer 2021. But get rid of the fundraiser. Don't worry about like raising any money. Just do it as something fun. And as a service, you could do it like for your church during the worship service, or you could even just do it out in the community. And I think in the community, people are going to be impressed by like, you're not charging, you're not like basically panhandling for their money while you wash your car. Just wash your car, have some music going, have your kids having fun. One of the reasons so this is just your kids getting together, having fun. They're also serving people. What I love about this for pandemic-based ministry is you are sanitizing the entire time. Think about it. The whole time you are immersed in soap and water. Like, you can't get safer than
Can
doing
we wash cars with hand sanitizer? Is that acceptable? No?
I have a feeling that is not clear coat friendly.
Okay.
Don't do that. But I bet you do have some spins on this that could be.
Yes. And you know, as I'm listening to you talk, I'm like, you should call it a fun raiser, right? Not fund, but fun. Have a fun raiser or a fun riser. So
here all week, everybody. Tip your waiters and waitresses.
For a few more minutes at least. All right. So as I'm listening to you talk about this, I'm traveling back in time to when I was a youth director in North Carolina. And we had a car wash once, but we decided that we probably also should wash dogs. So what if you had a car wash, but also had a dog wash? People need both washed, and people appreciate the support of their community washing their dogs. And if you want to be really brave, you could wash cats too. I don't recommend that. But there's real potential there, and people love, love, love to show off their animals. We may get to that a little bit later. So car and dog wash. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think so. Yes, and the time to get to showing off your pets is now. Like, I think you can even go sort of time machine and do like a blessing of the pets. I know some traditions do that, some don't. And some of you just rolled your eyes of like, this is not in any way innovative. It might not be new, but do it in a totally different way. Get it potentially out of the worship service, make it its own big deal thing. This is something you can do outside, let everyone bring their pets and do a blessing of the pets. And it's a great way to take like a fun, just we're together sort of thing, and also, explicitly but lightly put a spiritual moment on it.
Exactly. And let me tell you what, we do this every year. We do this every single year in some form because people love it. Absolutely love. They love to bring their pets. I have blessed dogs, cats, a hedgehog, seriously, a purple hedgehog, fish, lizards, you name it. You name it. And it's such a joyful experience, and it can be done safely outside. But here's what I was thinking as you were saying that, Mike. What if we had a blessing of the animals and a dressing of the animals? Who doesn't love a dog in a bow tie? Raise your hand. No one, see? Everyone loves to see a dog in a bow tie, or maybe a hamster in a bow tie, or with a tiny top hat. Animals.
I'm a personal fan of animals in tuxedos. It is pretty exceptional.
Yeah, so you could have a blessing of the animals, a dressing of the animals, which then leads me to think you probably need some sort of fashion show if you go to all that trouble to dress up your animals.
Yes, and go full out on the show. People dress up their animals, they show them off, they talk about them. If they want to give the bio of this animal, real or fictional, I know some people would have their actual bio, like, oh, my dog is a Pisces, da, 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 da. And some people would be like, well, when it came back from the Iditarod, da, 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 and you can make up a bio. If you did a full-fledged fashion show, you could even like go like Mr. Universe or like Miss America level and have a talent portion, because they're animals and everyone has a little talent they've taught their animal or they wish they could teach their animal. You could just go like sort of all out with that. And that even enables you to, if you couldn't meet in person, you could do that virtually. You could actually do that via Zoom from each person's house, much like any of these award shows we've seen in the last few months.
Exactly. We actually did that last September, right before our 10th birthday. And that was a big letdown. We had big plans for our 10th birthday, and then, it didn't work out. So we had 10 days of fun leading up to the celebration of our 10th birthday. And one of those days of fun was a pet show. And it was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Because one of the things we've learned about people in this bizarre season is we've learned a lot about their homes and their pets, right? Because who hasn't had the experience where they're trying to say something deep, meaningful, or important, and their dog loses it because of the UPS delivery person? I mean, we've all been there. I'm holding my breath that my dog remains quiet right now. So, just lean in and have fun. Blessing of the animals, dressing of the animals, pet shows. They are talented and deserve to be, have this.
Even messing of the animals, like where you get I was gonna say where you get your animals all messy, but even the term messing of the animals, I don't even know. That could be misconstrued of what those animals are doing. Maybe we skip that, but there's maybe not with our animals, but there's got to be something with messiness. I have a thing that actually is in my office. It's just not where you can see it. That my mom gave me, not when I was a little kid, but when I was a teenager, because she's like, this is you. And it says, messy is fun, fun is messy.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that is perfect. And that's also ministry, right? Like that's a fantastic definition for ministry in general. When you said messy, it made me think of something called Slot Fest. Now, I know about this because I had a college student years ago, actually, she was part of the launch team that launched Rise. But she talked all the time about how in her youth group, it was a Presbyterian youth group in Northern Virginia, they had this huge event every year that they called Slot Fest, and they had access to a field, like a piece of land, and they would essentially flood it. Like, I think they got the fire department to help with it or something. Don't quote me on this, folks. I'm probably wrong. But I remember it involved a field and an enormous amount of mud. And so they would have activities, Slot Fest activities, and they would just be like, she said she remembers mud in her ears and like her eyelashes being stuck together with mud. But when this woman or this young woman would talk about this experience, it was so formational for her. So yeah, like get outside and get sloppy. Maybe have sloppy joes too.
Yes, I love that. I have memories of something like that. Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in a big field anyway, like why don't you get out a crap ton, and that is a technical term, a crap ton of Visqueen, some 2x4s, and a buttload of soap, also a technical term, and create a giant slip and slide. Like if you have a big space, and that's something also that like you don't, you're not going to damage the space. Like you roll it out, you do it. But I'm talking like this has to be homemade. Like it's so big. We're talking like 100 feet long, like 8 feet wide, giant slip and slide.
Yeah. And you know what? I just remembered this year, I think it's going to happen. Of course, who knows? This is an Olympic year. So I'm thinking, why not have a giant slip and slide and somehow have like giant slip and slide Olympics?
Yeah, right? Love it. Because the giant slip and slide, like, especially if with kids, that you probably make that last a whole day. But like with youth, like it loses its novelty after 10 to 20 minutes, if we're being honest. But yeah, I love that idea of Olympics. Like, what if you did tug of war? How hard would tug of war be on a giant slip and slide? Or relay race, maybe human wheelbarrow race.
Yes.
That people might break their face. Just bring some pillows.
You probably should have a waiver for that.
Not that. But there are lots of different things you could do for Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why, but synchronized swimming is coming to mind. So you might want to find a baby pool and try that.
That is not something you will see Mike Crain participating in.
I bet I could talk you into it.
Probably. Synchronized swimming would be awesome. But really, like with this being Olympic year, you could do all sorts of Olympics, not just giant slip and slide. Like you could break your group into ages or grades, or it's really any sort of affinity you want to break them into. You could even do it as families, invite whole families and have like little Olympic groups. I would say a key if you're going to do Olympics is don't make everything athletic in nature.
Yeah.
Have some activities, some of the competitions that are like intellectual in nature or just goofy. Also, one thing I found really great in the times we've done Olympics is if the whole group doesn't have to participate in everything. Like you pick 1 or 2 people from your team. That way the athletic person can do the athletic event. The brainy person can do the brainy event. And you get this idea of everyone cheering them on. It actually, if you want a teaching at the end, it's a great analog for spiritual gifting and how God has sort of brought us all together as a body. You could really like nail that home with like an Olympics type theme activity.
And, you know, it's probably, for what we know, an Olympic year. So what about those who maybe need to stay mostly virtual? Do we have any thoughts about that, Mike?
Yes. So I will say a couple of things that we actually sort of have. I think the exclusive on from a colleague of ours are Let's Vidya. It's a online gaming company. and they are actually offering a virtual escape room and a virtual trivia. For anyone participating in this webinar, you can sign up. There you go. The links are dropping into the chat. But and Let's Vidya is great. The escape room, that'd be a ton of fun for youth. Trivia, I actually saw a friend of mine who is a youth director in Virginia. She went ahead and made the trivia a church-wide thing. She promoted to her youth, but then all the church could sign up. And she actually invited me to participate with her and her husband. It was super fun. I got to be on a team with some of her youth, but it was awesome to see all the generations from the church. If intergenerational ministry is really sort of one of the things that either you has been important to your church or is on your heart to be important, the online trivia actually lends itself to that pretty well.
Yes, and I have participated in a virtual escape room, and it was actually with a youth group. I was an adult with a youth group in Michigan, long story. And we were doing a virtual escape room, and I felt like an enormous doofus because it was not as intuitive for me. But I will tell you what, the youth flew through it and loved it. So I can vouch for the fact that those are pretty cool. Check it out.
Yeah.
Can I say just a word about our macaroni and cheese off, Mike?
Yes. And then we're gonna keep moving. We have so many ideas. We got to go into the conceptual part. But tell me about macaroni and cheese off. I'm curious what that is.
Really quickly, and we are really thinking about bringing this back this year. Essentially, this began years and years ago when I think it was after our potluck disappointment, when we closely analyzed the potluck. And what we determined was, Mike, what do people really want when they come to a potluck? Do they want pea salad? Do they want Jell-O?
Apparently Doritos is what they want. No, I want cheesy, gooey things.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what we determined. When people go to potlucks, what they're hoping for deep down inside is macaroni and cheese. And that's the best part of a potluck. So we said, all right, let's get rid of everything else and let's just have the best potluck ever and ask folks to bring their favorite mac and cheese recipe. Now, when this started, it was much smaller, and it's now grown. It's a thing now, and we have professional entries, but it is amazing. We've had lobster mac and cheese. We've had mac and cheese with Doritos on top, and it was a thing. And it has become a fundraiser, but it could also be a fun riser or a fundraiser, right? You don't need the D. You could just have this to have a great time. Now I understand there are COVID considerations and all that, but maybe it could be adapted. People really love this idea here. So keep the mac and cheese off in mind. Hey, we'll even share some of our excellent marketing. We are all about sharing, especially mac and cheese.
I love that idea. But I am open to the fact that some people on this call might be thinking, I don't like any of the ideas that you've said so far. Hopefully at least one you can take and do and sounds good to you, but you may be saying to yourself, I don't like any of these. Well, in that case, come up with your own ideas. And I don't mean that snarky. I mean that, hey, here's how you would come up with your own ideas. The reality is this. The next great idea for your youth ministry or children's ministry, family ministry, whole church ministry, the next idea for something great and fun, nobody has that idea right now, would be my guess. No one is sitting on that idea. The thing is, there's 5 or 6, maybe more people, 3 or 4 people that are sitting on parts of the idea. Exactly. There's this amazing video that's a quick explanation of a book called Where Good Ideas Come From. We're running short on time, so we're not going to show it to you, but Renee, if you could put the link to that video in the chat, it would be great. I would recommend going to watch that video. But basically the principle is that it's when people come together that great ideas happen. So I would say get a team together, like collaborate. And it doesn't have to be formal. Here's our youth ministry advisory team, right? This team could meet once. You could say, we are the summer planning meeting, and you could meet one time. This could be coffee with 4 or 5 volunteers or parents and just saying, hey, what ideas do you have? I recommend don't try to be the hub of it and meet with like a bunch of individuals. Get a whole group together in a room. That is when the best stuff happens. Ideas are just flinging around. And with that, make sure you have fun people in your collaboration. Amanda has maybe
That's right. So you may be also thinking, I don't know about this. Mike and Amanda are making me a little uncomfortable. How do I do this? I'll tell you, find Enneagram 7s. So, and if you want to know more about the Enneagram, Mike will tell you all about that. But although I'm seeing numbers pop up here, so I'm guessing those who are with us have some familiarity with it. But 7s often, actually I would say 7s and 6s, often know how to bring the fun. And so make sure that you have found folks who just naturally bring the fun and bring the energy and bring the creativity. And one thing that happens is when folks who are wired for fun get together, it's just like this wonderful mushroom cloud of fun. Those are spaces that are always incredibly life-giving for me. So yeah, make sure you have at least a couple of fun people who are part of this collaborative group.
Yeah, and the Enneagram, it's just one of the personality assessments of many that are out there. It's one that has a lot of popularity right now. You can take free versions of it. I like that it's 9 types rather than 4, and it sort of shows you what you do in stress. It's very helpful, but 7s, I mean, we say that sort of jokingly, but sort of true. Like they tend to go toward fun. If you're doing the old school, like 4 types and animals, like find a bunch of otters. Like get a bunch of otters, like those are the fun people. But a big thing as you're collaborating, here's an important thing. Don't pee on the campfire while it is heating up. Amanda just gave me the face, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Especially if you're like, when a bunch of people are brainstorming, the craziness can ensue. And if you're not one of those types that sort of gravitate toward that, if you're much more analytical, you can immediately start going to the concern side. But we don't want to do that. Amanda, like, what do we want to avoid in brainstorming here?
So please, please, please remember, and this is cliche, but there's quite a bit of truth in this cliche. There are no bad ideas in brainstorming. Create space for people to yes and, because the best ideas emerge from what often are viewed as absurd ideas. And I'm sitting here, Mike, as you're talking about how we need the whole body, right? We need the 7s, we need the people who bring the fun, and then we need the people who say, that sounds dangerous. You know, let's rethink this. And when the team works together, beautiful, beautiful things can emerge. But make sure that you create space just to let the creative energy and possibility loose. I like to think that's when the spirit is at work.
Yes, when you're in, and when you're in that initial brainstorming, like put away the practical for a minute. Not forever, we'll come back to it, but don't be thinking immediately why you can't do something.
Right.
Because the beauty of the bad ideas, like in brainstorming, I am notorious for bad ideas, and I know they're bad ideas. Like I'm thinking this, I'm like, I'm about to sound like an idiot saying this out loud, but I feel almost compelled to share with the group because I know one little piece of my terrible idea is going to be part of the good idea that we actually do, like something from what I said. So also throw out your bad ideas, put aside practical for a minute. Mm-hmm. No buts. When you're brainstorming and someone says something, don't say but. Shut up. Don't.
There are no buts in brainstorming. No bad ideas and no buts in brainstorming. Just let it go. And it's amazing. In the early days, again, of Rise, we had something called a blue skies list. And that's from Disney. Evidently, this is something Disney does when it's innovating. They have what they call the blue skies list or space. And that's the whole idea, is just dream, right? Don't worry about if it's feasible, if it's absurd, just put it on the list. And some amazing ideas emerged for us from that blue skies list. Every so often, you need to go there.
Yeah.
So no buts, yes, and Mike, I think we've made our point here, but just in case, say a word about yes and.
Yeah, it's basically the rule of improv. In the rule of improv is you always say yes. And it leads to some of the most crazy, if you've ever been to live improv with people that are good at it, it's some of the most incredible skits and comedy you'll ever see. But the rule is yes. Like whatever someone says, yes, and then you've got to add to it. So when you're brainstorming, always yes and. If you're paying good attention, you may have noticed Amanda and I doing that as we were talking about ideas. We're sort of riffing off the last idea, yes and, yes and. Yeah. Yes, and we are nearing the end of our time. Before we wrap up, we want to leave just a couple minutes for questions, if there are any. Renee, we will sort of leave it to you to direct us to any questions that there are to answer. If not, we'll sort of wrap up.
No questions, team. Just winners.
Woo! Winner.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as Amanda said, like if you hear nothing else today, take away this.
Yes, and. So important. 2 words that can transform your summer and your life. Yes, and. Also, I want to issue a call to action. Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with us. This has been fun. I think it's been fun. But don't stop here. Do something with this. At your next team meeting, play a little bit, right? I was telling Mike before we got started, I went to the closet in my basement and started looking to see what might be there that looked fun. And I found these tiny rubber chickens that you can fling across the room. Just because that's a normal thing to have in your closet. But the point is, bring some props, be absurd, and take the next step. Do something with the information you've had here. It could be so life-giving and life-changing in all seriousness for you and your ministry. And I know we've mentioned some resources, but Mike, can you remind us one more time?
Yeah, so resources, you have the YouTube video you can watch where good ideas come from. Also, the Let's Video, the escape room, and the trivia hour. Please register for those. It'll be a great time. It'll be really enjoyable. Those really are the resources that are available for you all. There's also tons of other resources, not necessarily related just to fun, but all sorts of ministry resources at ministryarchitects.com on our resources page as well. And feel free to reach out to Amanda or I as well. I think Renee will drop our emails in the chat. Feel free to put us both in the email so it comes to both of us. So
yes, I actually would love to collaborate with any of you. Yes, and a little bit with you, and have a creative fun storming session.
All right. And I am going to announce our virtual event winners are Shannon Cook and Sheila Kellenbarger. Man, I hope that was right. They were drawn out of a hat, Renee tells me. Email Renee for more information there. I hope she means a literal hat. And I really just hope it was a fedora.
I think it was a hat like this.
Or a sailor's hat.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, you did come with props.
I did. Come with props. Yep.
Yeah. So, the next webinar is a mystery at this point, but we are doing a webinar every month, so there will be a June webinar. Keep your eyes peeled for that in the monthly newsletter, Sustainable Bites. If you are not receiving that, sign up for that, please, and you'll get just great ministry tips and info every month.
And hey, Mike, I think that they should get a prize if they send us a picture of an animal in a top hat.
Agreed. We will make prizes happen for that.
So please find a way to send us a picture of an animal in a top hat, and we'll make it worth your time.
Is it okay if it is a Google picture, or they need to create like an original?
No, it needs to be an original picture.
Okay.
And yeah, this requires work, people. Fun is work.
Agreed. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
Really, thank you for bearing with us and humoring us. We love you guys. We appreciate you tuning in.